Hey everybody,
Hey,
I'm Libby Trossel from Advantage C at Carroll Community College, and this is
Jill Hermes. I work with Libby. I'm the Director of Corporate Solutions with Advantage C.
Thanks for joining us today. We have a couple things that we wanted to bring to you. First, I wanted to give you an overview of Advantage C and the services that we provide for the business community. And then I wanted to have Jill share some information about her upcoming Power Brew. And I'll let her tell you all about it. I'm not going to blow the suspense there.
It's Tuesday, mark your calendar.
Yes, next Tuesday,
the
right?
20th, 9 a.m.
Yes. So first of all, Advantage C, just an overview. So Advantage C is a service of Carroll Community College, and we work with local businesses to help them be more successful through the power of their employees. And how do we do that? We do that through employee training, first and foremost. We also provide services for businesses in the area of consulting, facilitation, and assessment is the third one, in addition to training. So we encourage you to check us out on the web at www.advantage-c.com. There's lots of testimonials out there, case studies, and a lot more information about what it is that we provide for the business community in Carroll County. So check it out. Next, I want to turn you over to Jill. So let me tell you a little bit about Jill. Jill joined us in October. So tickled to have her on our team. She loves working with area businesses, talking with the business community, finding out what their needs are, and making sure that Advantage C is able to meet those needs. So we're just thrilled to have her on staff, and she's going to use some of her expertise to do next week's Power Brew. So next week's Power Brew is on recruiting employees, and Jill happens to have spent 20 years in the area of employee recruiting.
Hard to believe I've worked that long, I know.
Yes. You started when you were 2. And she's got a wealth of information she's going to bring to you. And I'm going to let her really set the stage, share a little bit of a teaser with you about that so that you'll be sure to tune in. And we already have a lot of people registered to sign up to attend the free Power Brew webinar. So don't you miss out on that opportunity as well. I'm just going to scoot over there and let Jill do her thing.
Thanks, Libby. So we are looking forward to the Power Brew webinar that's coming up on Tuesday. And I think one of the reasons that we have so many people signed up already is because the topic of recruitment is just a hot topic right now. And it's on everyone's mind. So we're going to address recruitment and retention. You know, everywhere we go, whether we talk to businesses in the manufacturing realm or the finance industry, or really anything in between, they're telling us we are really having a hard time finding folks to work in our organization, and we're also having a hard time keeping them. So we want to address those topics, and some of the things we're going to look at are what does it take to create a talent pipeline, and just what is that? We'll talk about a lot of different kind of tools that you can have in your toolbox to be more proactive when you recruit employees. And then something else you can think about is this particular webinar is the first one of a series. So we're going to start broad, and then we're going to dive deeper into more specific topics, components of this. So then another kind of area that we're going to look at is what are the current challenges in talent acquisition? There are many, and I'll just say 2 words to you that probably are pretty familiar to you: talent shortage. So that is something that's not going to get too much better anytime soon. One way we can look at it, we're really fortunate to be in a thriving economic community. So part of the consequences of that oftentimes is a very low unemployment rate. Nationally, it's low, the state is low, and Carroll County's is low. So that's something that we'll just have to learn to be strategic with and creative. And there are a few other obstacles too that we'll talk about. Another thing we're going to address is how do we approach employee retention? I'm a huge believer that retention is one of our best recruitment tools, right? And I know that word gets thrown around a lot. What does it look like in your organization? Those are things that we're going to talk about. You know, when we think about employees and finding the right people for our organization, sometimes we have to start before we ever develop that pipeline, and we have to start thinking, hey, what are we really looking for? Who's going to fit in this organization? Who's going to bring something to the table that is new and innovative and fresh and can fit in and be productive? That's a tall order. One of the things I'd be really curious about, and I'd ask you to start thinking about, what are the qualities that you look for in employees? And you'll have an opportunity to be interactive with us on Tuesday during the webinar. So I'm really curious, what are the things that are really important to you as employers? What qualities? So be thinking about that. That'll help get you prepped. Another thing we're going to look at is employee engagement. Another one of those buzzwords, but it is so important. What does it look like? Why do we care about it? How does it relate to recruitment and retention? And we'll talk a lot about that. There's no shortage of research out there about that. You can pick up a variety of white papers. You can do all kinds of queries about employee engagement. And you can look at, again, production firms where people are working on a shop floor. You can look at the finance industry. You can look at education. And you can say employee engagement is really important. And how do we address it? Another thing I'm going to talk about is organizational culture. What is that? What's the definition? How does it relate to how I recruit and how I retain my employees? And everyone has a unique organizational culture, right? It's kind of like your personality at work. So we're going to talk about getting a good pulse on what your culture is and how does that help or hinder the way you recruit and retain. As Libby mentioned, I worked for over 20 years in the recruiting industry, and it was great fun because I got to connect with all different kinds of employers. And then after that, I had the opportunity to work in higher education, where it's a different kind of culture, but still faces many of the same challenges and obstacles to creating the most productive work environment. And then we're going to also talk about being relevant to prospective employees. So that means a lot of different things, and we'll touch on those, and we'll kind of take a dive into what is the current idea of what's really appealing in an employer, and does an employer need to think about that when creating their brand and creating their culture. When we think about the process of hiring employees, selecting them, finding a pool of employees, most of us think about interviewing as part of that process. I'm going to spend some time talking about interviewing and our techniques and what we do with that information. Interviewing, we spend so much energy on the process of finding the right folks for our firm. We want to make sure that we're going about things the right way. Obviously, we need to follow the law. That's most important. And then we need to think about, are we asking the questions that get to the heart of the matter here? What are the questions? What is behavioral interviewing? And why do I need to be prepared for that? Why do I have to train my staff in being efficient in interviewing? So those are all things we're going to talk about. So guys, is there anything that you can think of that I didn't cover?
Sounds like a great webinar.
Well, we look forward to seeing you when you tune in on Tuesday, and we'll talk then. Bye.